Hey, Jim,
Hey.
do you remember about 2 weeks ago we played a game called Phantasmagoria 2?
How could I forget?
Do you remember the main character in this game, Curtis?
Absolutely.
Guess what? We're about to sit down with Paul Morgan Stetler, the actor who played Curtis, the player character in Phantasmagoria 2. He has a project called Conversations with Curtis, which can be found on YouTube, in which he's revisiting this game 25 years later and sort of doing an oral history of Phantasmagoria 2, a hidden gem, I would say.
For sure. It's such a charming FMV game. I had such a blast playing it on the stream.
I'll be honest, I think it is my favorite game that we have played on stream for the
Oh, me
show.
too. It definitely surprised me in more ways than any other game has. I was
Absolutely.
so. By the way, I this intro is recorded. You know, the magic of show business. We're recording this after we've already done the conversation,
A
and I
peek
will
behind the
say,
curtain.
yeah, we're there's some inside baseball. I will say that the fact that we actually got to ask him about the navel piercing he received, which for me was the most shocking moment in the game. What a treasure that was.
It was great. He was so kind and gracious, and I really hope that listeners will hear what he has to say and then go check out Conversations with Curtis and check out our Let's Play too if you haven't watched that.
Sure,
You're
yeah.
getting loads of content with this
Oh
one
yeah,
little
check
bonus
out the Square
episode.
Roots YouTube channel for our Let's Play of Phantasmagoria 2. Find us on Twitter. We're gonna retweet a lot of Paul's projects, and we hope you enjoy the conversation.
We are here with Paul Morgan Stetler, who played Curtis, the lead character in Phantasmagoria 2, which we just recently streamed to our YouTube channel. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. I got the chance to see some of it. You guys look like you were having a lot of fun.
I honestly had so much more fun than I expected.
Yeah.
I had played Phantasmagoria 1 when I was probably a little too young to be playing it, and frankly, it freaked me out. And so I never picked up 2 and then kind of heard about it, but as you're probably aware, it was not that widely lauded at the time. But was I was really, really pleasantly surprised with it, I gotta say.
Yeah, I had never played any of the Phantasmagoria games, and then Vanessa played the first one for the show on a live stream. And when I heard how different the second one was from the first one, I was like, well, we got to do the second one eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and figure out what it's about.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start there with revisiting this 25-year-old project because I didn't do any Googling before we played it. I wanted to be fresh. And then afterwards, I'm like, so what are people saying now about it?
Mm.
And do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with meeting fans of the game now?
Yeah, it's a story that covers a long period of time. I don't know. I'll try to keep it from being too long of a story, but you know, I was an actor here in Seattle. I had moved here out of graduate school, and I was a couple years into hitting the audition circuit and doing theater and stuff in town, and had a couple other gigs lined up around that time frame, and I ended up getting an audition for this game, and someone had dropped out kind of at the last minute, and so they needed to find someone. So I ended up getting cast, and it was a huge deal. It was just it was the biggest, it ended up being almost a 6-month shoot. It was supposed to be 3 or 4, I think, but it went over time and budget. And I wasn't a gamer. I'm still not much of a gamer, but this was the way that, I mean, this little pocket of FMV games had the potential to become like the next big thing, and it ultimately didn't. And I think ours was one of the biggest budget, sort of biggest. They took a huge swing with this game, and so we got in under the wire because it ultimately didn't go anywhere. So I got this great job. I kind of thought there's a possibility it would jumpstart my career a little bit in terms of film and TV, but there wasn't enough crossover back then. And so when the game didn't do well, and then when FMV games in general didn't really move forward, there was nothing there. And so I just went about my business and kept auditioning and such. And then years go by, and Facebook happens, and then all of a sudden, we all got on Facebook and we have our first 30 friends, and that turns into 200 friends. Well, all of a sudden I'm getting people wanting to friend me that are like, Curtis, dude, and how are you? And I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. And I didn't have a fan page or anything. So I kind of thought, okay, I guess some people are watching it. But as people started to do YouTube Let's Plays like you guys did, but as that started to come, there was just this underground, cult-like status forming of this game over the years, and it kept finding more and more audience, fans. A lot of people played it like you when they were way too young. I feel bad that there were some 13-year-olds out there that should not have seen this game or played this game, but they all seem to be turning into really cool people, and so I just keep getting these people either send me a message on Facebook or somewhere or other. I have a company called Letters Aloud. It's a educational entertainment company, and I have a small YouTube channel there, but a lot of people found me, so most of my subscribers on Letters Aloud are Phantasmagoria fans. So anyways, long story short, it just kept building. And I didn't quite know what to do with it. After a couple of, I think the Spoonie experiment, he did that wonderful parody of, he played the game and just in a Mystery Science 3000 kind of way made great fun of it, which it deserved. But I wasn't sure if that's all that was out there. I mean, I didn't really want to engage. I think it's totally, it's fair game for sure. But I'm not sure I wanted to engage just with people who were making fun of this thing. But
right.
more and more, I just found that people really connected to this game, and it seemed genuine and real, and it kept building. And so anyways, COVID happened, and I had some extra time, and I kind of dipped into it a little bit. I realized this year was the 25th anniversary, and I just thought, well, what if I haven't talked to most of these people in 25 years? What if I just reach out and start talking and create a little oral history of this? And I did a little teaser video just to see if it would catch any interest. And like within a week I had like 3,000 views, and from all over the world. And so we did the first live stream last month, and it was me mostly just sharing my experience, and then the rest of the live streams starting this Friday, and each month through the rest of the year I'll be inviting a new guest on, like one of the cast members or the director or writer, whoever I can get to come back and talk about it. And so it seems to be finding, it seems to be growing, and it's been really fun. So it's been an interesting process.
I think it's such a cool project because you're absolutely right that people thought that these full motion video games were the future of games, and they were talked about it at the time. And people were almost right. If you look at the way games are made now, you have actors doing the motions, you have, their faces filmed. It's just they get the little gloss of the animation on top of them.
Right.
But, it was really interesting to see that.
I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this. Where, I think, I don't know about the other FMV games. And there's a lot of people that love the first Phantaz and not the second one, and vice versa. They both have their good qualities, and they're not. I think the first Phantasm, correct me if I'm wrong, is a better game. It's more functional and it makes more sense.
It feels like more of a game than the second one does. The second one is very FMV, but there's a HUD and a lot of graphical elements, more game elements in the first one. It feels like.
That's what it felt like too. And so this one was, it always felt like a movie to me. We were shooting on a set, we were shooting out. So it was a strange movie because we had to do so many things over and over again in these short little scenes and such. But anyways, I think that there's something about, when you go back and you actually see real people interacting, you end up getting a little more caught up in the emotional element of it, as opposed to the best version of a mocap person that's, as you said, they look incredibly real and you can get caught up, but there's a certain point it's not a real person. And I think I think this ends up I mean, the relationships is what seems to be what's kept this game alive. You know, the fact that Curtis and his friend Trevor are so close, and they have this really open, unquestioning friendship. You know, that this game really dealt with identity and being confused and mental health, and in a really interesting way. You know, that no games were doing before. It had no judgment on kink culture or anything like that. It just was, this was the world he was living in, you know?
I absolutely agree. And in fact, we knew this was a 1996 game. Our bailiwick is older games, and we've run into games that don't handle things well. You know, it's like they show their age. And even at the time, probably those jokes shouldn't have made it in there. So when Trevor was introduced as a gay character, I sort of got that cringe feeling. I'm like, okay, waiting for the shoe to drop, waiting for, you know, and same thing with Curtis visiting a therapist. I was like, okay, you know, is the therapist going to be evil? What are they going to say about mental health? And it didn't happen. Like, it really played it so well, and was really a sensitively written character. And I was delighted by it, you know? It's like, I was like, thank God this is, you know, they didn't go that route. And it's so refreshing to see.
Yeah. And then that's all Lorelei Shannon who wrote. I mean, so the fact that that should be written by, in my mind, that a game like that has to be written by a team of people. But for the fact that she was able to keep all that in her head and have it come out, because she did everything. You know, it wasn't just the script; it was the game from beginning to end. That was her thing. So it's quite an achievement.
Yeah, especially when you consider all those little touches, like the emails and the way, you know, Curtis talks to his rat and all that stuff. Like the fact that all that was written by one person is very interesting.
Yeah, and that was her rat, by the way.
Really?
Oh, really?
If I'm not mistaken, she had two, and I think that we had a blob 1 and a blob 2. I think we had a squad. But yeah.
So have you found that people who didn't play the game in the 90s are discovering it now through Steam and through new platforms?
I think so. I think, you know, I started a Patreon account because this has ended up turning into, as you guys know, this ends up being, it just gobbles up your time. It was really, it started like a fun thing. Okay, I'll just do this thing once a month. But then you realize, oh, I've got to put a show together, and I've got to do all the work, and I got to get the material, and I got to get I'm on Twitter for the first time in my life, and so I'm like a kindergartner out there. Yeah, finding some people to help with the technical aspects and the social media aspects. So it's been a lot. So anyways, all that said, I have a Patreon account, and oh God, I just lost my train of thought. What was the thing you just asked me?
Whether or not you're finding people are discovering the game now,
and so with the patrons that I've gotten, it's crazy. There's a lot of them in their early 30s. You know, I assumed it was going to be people that are their late 40s, early 50s who kind of played this game when it first came out, and they were a little bit younger. But like I said, I think a lot of teenagers back then saw it, and but I also think that there's these, like Ross Scott at Accursed Farms, he's got this huge following, and he does, and this is one of his favorite games, and so he did a review of it. And as soon as he did the review, you know, all of his fans checked it out, and so all of a sudden we're getting this whole new wave of people looking at this and discovering it for the first time, which is kind of neat.
That is cool.
It's I think the games are such a unique medium in that, of course, you played Curtis, but also the player is playing Curtis. You know, so it becomes this very intimate experience in a way. It's like almost in between a book and a movie, I would say. Like,
you know, and I make fun, or you know, so when I got cast, we went to the Gap, and they bought me like 6 pairs of black jeans and 12 T-shirts, gray pocketed T-shirts, and then I got a pair of Doc Martens, which was silly because I'm so much taller than the other actors, and it made me even taller. But so for 6 months, I wore this T-shirt every single day, this gray nondescript T-shirt, and I remember it drove me crazy after a while. I think I fought for the one scene in the game where I go to the borderline And I'm like, it's nighttime. Can I at least be wearing a jacket? And so they found some crew guy had like a jean jacket, and I got to put that on during that scene just to mix it up a little bit. But on reflection, they were creating someone, as you said, that represented the player. They needed to create someone that, keeping it very simple, very neutral, the gray, the black, a character that doesn't have the most, his personality is taking everything in, and he's not the most,
he's not proactive necessarily.
He's not very proactive, and his personality isn't, very rambunctious. And so I think that that's on purpose, so that we can all sort of put ourselves in that character, And I thought they did a great job of making that happen.
Mm-hmm. So have you discovered anything new about how you see the project as you're revisiting it now?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, I'd seen some of the, the footage of it, when it first came out. I think I used a lot of that for like a reel, when I went down to LA, but I've still never played the game. I've watched enough, like your guys' Let's Play recently, to know that there are certain things you can't do until you do everything. And I don't know if I'd know that. So, I mean, watching you, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I would have known how to, I knew what to do, but I didn't know I had to do that at that moment. And, I cringe at some, just as in the theater, it's hard to watch yourself, and so I look at certain things and think, I could have done better there. But no, it's really interesting. And part of why I'm doing this, honestly, is I'm just curious why people keep coming back to this. What is it about this game that keeps, I'm sure there are other ones too, but this game seems to, keep amassing fans as opposed to leveling off. And so I'm just very curious. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Like, what was it? It's not the greatest game in the world, but what is it about this that made you want to play it? And why are you talking to me right now? What is it that?
I think personally, like aesthetically, one of the things I love about FMV games is it's like watching an older horror movie that has practical effects in it.
Yeah.
It's you just kind of get there's kind of an artistry to it that you don't see in a lot of modern games, and a real practicality that I think is great. And it's so fun watching actual actors, act in these roles in this video game. It's just not something that you see, especially in modern AAA games, where it's, these very professional voice performers and physical performers, and everything is very kind of smoothed out and has kind of a corporate sheen to it. And this just felt a little more practical and a little more raw, and it's just fun to experience that.
Yeah, that's neat. How about you, Vanessa?
I think I had the same experience. Again, I'd played Fan 1. Actually, I bought it at Northgate Mall. There was this little computer game shop, and I remember taking it back and being like, no, thank you. Like, I played almost all of it, and then I'm like, no, like, this was before, they slapped the big rating warning on games and things like that. So I'd always wanted to play it, and just, life happens, and with games, it's like new stuff is always coming out, and it's a genre where people, I think, chase the new a lot. It's like, oh, what's the next big thing going to be, rather than looking back, which is, I think, why I'm fortunate now to have my friends I do this show with, where we play games like a book club, essentially.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and just get to experience some of what we missed.
Yeah, it's funny that you're talking about, like, watching this, when we did it, the guy Robert Stanley, who was the special effects person, it's stunning what he did. None of that. There's no CGI. The scene where at the very end where Curtis is being chased by his dead friends, and I think, what is it, Tom that takes the sledgehammer and ends up accidentally crushing Bob's
ball.
Oh yeah.
Well, he created this body, and he just filled this head with, he made a plaster cast of Bob's, or the actor Don's head, and filled it with all this goop. And so that really was, it was just this, so it was fun.
Definitely like the practical sets. And I think having grown up in Seattle myself, just the office set was like, I know this place. Like
Yeah.
I've never been here, but I get it. Like, and we talked in our stream about just the wall sconces and things like that. It's
Yeah.
like it
Yeah, a
was
lot of
so
detail. They did.
Yeah,
They
the
did.
set design, especially in all of the characters' different cubicles,
Yeah.
was very good. There's just a lot of small touches that really add to those characters.
It was impressive, yeah. And the other thing I think that's interesting is that going back to the fans that we're getting in general is that I think that people discover this watching someone on YouTube play it. It's like the three of you played it, and you got another person there, right?
there's 4 of us.
Four of you. Okay, so yeah, 4 of you, and so you were playing it, and you're talking amongst yourselves, and you're having a good time, and sort of figuring it out together. But then I think that people see that, and they go, "Okay, I'll go get it," and now they're by themselves. And they have to play this on their own, and they might get some cheaters, if they need it. But now they're actually interacting in a more intimate way than sort of having fun and chatting. And I think that that's where this game sort of gets into you a little bit. Yeah. That's where the relationships and so the spookiness starts to get because you can't just laugh it off because you're talking to people at the same time.
Right. It really is I would call it a psychological horror film. For most of it. Most of it is
definitely
about this internal experience rather than something chasing you. The end of the game does have some green screen, and I think I heard you say on your first stream that they ran out of budget to do the ending that you wanted to do.
Yeah, we got like you got a week left. We had probably 4 weeks of filming to the ending. There was so much, and I don't remember. I wish I did remember what the original ending was, or they just. But I just remember them redlining pages and pages of script because they just had to get it done, and they did. They ran out of money, and they went over budget and time, and I don't know all the details about who or why that happened, but yeah, we did not bring it home as I think the opening. There's a lot of scenes that are just beautiful. I mean, there's the stuff if you look at the cinematography and the lighting in the psychiatrist's office, it's gorgeous. I mean, you can't really tell because of the quality of the video, but they did some incredible stuff. Like they had cranes like going down on I'm sitting on the couch and it's working its way down into it's just so cool from the ceiling down, and so that was not able to be achieved when we got to the end and lost all of our money.
It's really a pity because it does have this really dramatic tone shift at the end of the game, and there's one puzzle at the end which
I hear it's like the impossible puzzle.
We
It
just
is the
cheated our way
impossible
through it. But even doing it, I was like, how would you ever figure out how to do this? And
there's nothing intuitive about it.
That's what I've heard. I'm sorry about that. I take no
no, I mean, especially at that point, it's like I didn't want to do a puzzle. I want to know about what happens to Curtis and what happens to his friends. It's like I was in it for the people at that point. No,
it's funny. I haven't talked to Lorelai, and I gosh, I hope it's Lorelai. Maybe it's Laura Lee, but we hadn't seen each other since rap. Pretty much everybody, and the only person I stayed in touch with is the woman who played Therese. She lives in Seattle. Her name's Rachna, and she's married to a good friend of mine. And so she and I are pals. But other than that, I haven't talked to anybody. That's why I'm excited to kind of do this. But Lorelai and I both were invited onto this very small podcast. I don't know, maybe 5-6 months ago, and she was great. And I remember her saying, or someone, her one regret. I'm not sure if she said this on the podcast or somewhere else, but her one regret was killing Trevor off. That's the one thing she wishes that.
I regret that too. Yeah, I really came to like that character. When he's introduced, he's like, "Oh, here's the office goof guy,"
Yeah,
But,
here's the office cut up. Yeah.
But it becomes this story about this friendship between two men, which you don't see that often, and especially back then, and sort of a romantic friendship in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, all of the interactions with Curtis and Trevor, I think were like the highlight of the game. Like the emails, all the different ways you could reply to the emails to Trevor, the interactions in the restaurant, all the kind of office banter. It felt very special from compared to some of the other interactions in the game.
Right. Yeah. He's great, and we're gonna have. I did reach out to Paul, and he'll be one of my next guests. So we have Monique. So next Friday we do the second live stream. So, and now that I've kind of talked about my experience, I get to sort of focus on everybody else. So Monique, who played Jocelyn, she's going to be my guest this coming Friday, or a week from today. And again, haven't talked to her other than just reaching out to make this thing happen. So I can't wait to catch up with her. And then I think it'll be Paul after that. And so we'll keep going through the end of the year and see what happens after that. It seems like there's a lot of potential to kind of turn this into something beyond just a oral history, you know?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
And I think you asked, like, why are we talking to you? It really is your Conversations with Curtis project. I'm like, in most cases, someone does a project 25 years ago, you don't want to talk about it. It's like you've moved on with your life. What are you going to say? But I love that you're making the effort to sort of look at this. It's such a unique, first of all, FMV is pretty rare, still, even at the time. They didn't make that many. It occupies such a space in history where it was going to be the next big thing. It was right when people were starting to have computers in their home, but a lot of people didn't. And I feel like it was just sort of the wrong time to be doing it, if that makes any sense.
Yep, it was. The technology wasn't as advanced as the ideas, I think,
Yeah. And if you look at the game industry now, this is a multi-billion-dollar game industry.
It
rivals the film industry.
It was almost kind of an error in the marketing when it came to FMV. I think if it wasn't billed as like the future of gaming, it maybe would have had a little more staying power in the gaming industry. Like it could have been a very interesting like sub-genre that developers could have played with, but I think like it kind of fizzled out. And I think a lot of it was just the way that it was hyped up.
I think you're right. And I think that it was confusing in the sense that people who loved to play video games did not get enough of a game, and people who wanted to see a sort of an interactive movie didn't get enough of the movie that they wanted. So I think that you had these two sides that wanted what they wanted, but they weren't able to look at the whole and see how that was being combined in a way that no one else had really done.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like these days where people are so much more used to playing games. We all have the games on our phone, right? It's like we walk around, you play Candy Crush or whatever it is people play. And I think that people are more ready to interact with things in different ways now.
Yeah, I think, the kind of the maybe not natural progression, but the progression of FMV into like an augmented reality kind of game now, they feel like sister projects in a way, and it'll be really interesting to see how all that kind of develops with the way people are interacting with cameras on their phones and how that's similar to kind of some of those FMV experiences. It'll be cool to see how that develops.
Yeah, do you see is there any, I've been getting all this really, fans are coming out and they're saying, a lot of people are like, we got to get a Kickstarter going for Phantasmagoria 3 or whatever. But I'm just kind of curious, in the gaming world, would this be an interesting thing could you see a company going, let's go back to this. Let's let's see if we can go live. And then now we have more, capabilities. Do you think that this could ever find its way back?
I think so. I think that there have been a couple of projects recently that have tried, and then there have also been things like, I don't know if you heard about what's it called, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt did an interactive episode on Netflix. And so Netflix is starting to introduce things where you make choices for the characters with the Netflix button. It's like it's creeping in different ways. And also studios now are really realizing, we can hire name actors, frankly, like face actors, to be in our games and have that be a big appeal to it. Like Keanu Reeves was just in a game that was hugely marketed as like, oh my god, it's Keanu Reeves, he's going to be in this. But even some of the older games we've played, you have like Patrick Stewart doing voices, just these great actors who realize, it's not necessarily just this niche market that I don't care about. It's storytelling. It's just it looks
and that's
different.
what it comes down to. That's the thing that has made it. I wasn't sure this was something. A friend of mine said, we're destined to become famous for the things we care about the least, or something like that. But I had never really looked back, and I had never thought of this as something that it just didn't make sense. But now that I'm kind of playing in the sandbox, it's really interesting, and I think there's so many ways to go. I'm actually really enjoying this, and I'm learning a lot, and the people have been so cool and fun. I mean, this is a really cool community that I haven't gotten to know, and I'm excited to be in here now.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a draw. I mean, like I compare those FMV games to like older practical effects horror films. It's got that same draw. Like games like Phantasmagoria have that same draw for me as those older films, like The Thing, or like a lot of those 80s horror films where it's all practical effects. I think there's a charm there that modern games don't have, that I think a lot of people would kind of latch onto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it works so well for horror because it's scarier than watching a horror movie to play a horror game. For me, at least, it's
because if you're the one, opening the door, you should
exactly.
No one to blame for yourself, right?
Yeah. There was one part in Fan 2 right after Curtis had gotten his belly button piercing, which I have to say was one of the most surprising things I've ever seen in a video game.
We were kind of talking amongst ourselves as host of the podcast, and I told my co-host, I was like, I felt like I understood what this game was, and then there was a belly button piercing, and then I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what's gonna happen at all.
Yeah. There's a part just after that where you have the option to click on the belly button ring, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to see what's going to happen if I interact with it.
I remember every time another character I think another character in one of the later scenes like touch your torso, and I was like, no, don't, it's probably so sore from that belly button piercing.
Oh, I forgot about that, because I'm sure you pushed it, right? Did you do it?
No, I didn't. I couldn't do it.
Do you know what happens?
No, I don't. I have no idea
what happens. You want me to tell you?
Yes, please.
So he digs in, and he just kind of plays with the ring a little bit, and he realizes it's kind of loose, and he starts to pull. And then he just starts pulling more, and then this like guts and
I can't believe we missed that.
And then it all kind of it's like he has all these horrible visions, and so like within a couple seconds he's back, and you don't know to what degree.
Oh man, that would have been great.
Yeah,
I sort of wish I'd done it, but I couldn't. Like, I really couldn't. I was like, I'm not going to do this to Curtis. I know if I click it, something's going to happen.
That's hilarious. It's funny because the guy that they hired to be the piercer, he was a piercer. That's what he did. He came from the local tattoo shop, and we were there, and he's like, dude, I can do it. It'll take me 2 seconds. If you want this, I can do it. And there was a moment I'm like, I'm an actor. I don't know. Should I do this? It might be kind of cool. And so there was a very short. In fact, I think I haven't thought about this until just now, but I remember now going to Andy, the director, and saying, look, if you really want this, I let me know. And he's like, no, it'd be too much.
That is a big commitment. I have to applaud you. That's a big commitment to the role to get your name.
I think if he had said yes, I might have had to rethink. I don't know. I wasn't sure. I was trying to be a good sport. I'm glad he said no, I think. But
so do you want to talk just a little bit about where our listeners can find Conversations with Curtis?
Yeah, thank you. So we're on Facebook. It's just at Conversations with Curtis. Twitter is the same, or I think it's Convos at Curtis. And then we have a YouTube channel, same thing. And we'd love to get you. That's where all the live streams will live once we're done, and people can go back and watch the recordings of them. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. I should probably double check to make sure. Yeah, Convos with Curtis on Twitter, and and so our next one is Friday at 4 p.m. Friday the 21st at 4 p.m. with Monique Parent, and we got some fun things. I'm also starting to. I had this idea, and I will see how it works, of engaging some YouTubers like yourself into the conversation. So people that have done Let's Plays or playthroughs and reviews of the game that have very specific point of view about it. I'm trying to reach out to a few of those, see if I can get them to come on for maybe 10 minutes or so and talk about why the game means something to them. If perhaps that I can line that guest up so that it connects a little bit with my guest that week or that month, that would be kind of cool too. So we'll see. I'm just trying to play around with the form a little bit and kind of keep it interesting.
No, I think that's a cool idea because it is, when you do theater, the audience is either going to engage with you or not, but in a game they have to, that's how you make it go. So it's such a unique method of storytelling in that way. That's why I compare it to a book. It's like you have to be physically participating in some way in order to experience it. And I think that's cool. And I'm glad that you're having a good experience with the game community. It has a bad rep for reasons, but
very good reasons.
Yeah. But what we found in doing this, and I was nervous, especially as a woman, to sort of step into the game world and start the podcast. There are some great people out there.
There really are.
I think positivity attracts positivity in the game world, and
true.
We've been lucky enough to attract a pretty good fan base.
I mean, I don't know. I want to just share a story with you. So a guy reached out to me on Twitter. I basically went on Twitter and said, I just kind of did a full transparency, like, hey, I'm new to this. I don't know how I know there's a lot of fans out there that I'm not getting the word to yet. And if you can help with, sharing or even just giving me some tips about how to make sure I can expand my reach, that would be great. And this guy reaches out and he says, I'm a game developer. He lives in Israel. And he has a really incredible following on Twitter, and it seems like he's the real deal. And he said, I'd love to help. I'd love to maybe make some fun teasers for you and create a game that will, that we can take some footage from Phantasm and create a little game out of it and drive people towards your channel. And so we were about to meet, and I get an email saying, I can't meet right now because the bombs are too close, and that we have to kind of go. But then I get another email from the day goes, it's not getting better, but we should have this meeting anyways. And if I have to run down to the cellar, I'll run down to the cellar. So just the fact that people reach out like that and from all over the world and whatever they're experiencing it's so foreign to me, it just blows my mind, the generosity of spirit that people can.
Yeah, we had an interaction recently. You're our second kind of interview guest. Our first was we just randomly tagged screenwriter and director Billy Ray, who wrote Captain Phillips and The Hunger Games.
I heard a little of this. I want to hear. Tell me.
We were joking on Twitter because one of his films is like my favorite film, and I watch it all the time.
Yeah, so it comes up on the show a lot.
So it kind of
Shattered Glass.
Yeah, Shattered Glass.
That's a great movie.
Yeah,
that's the one about the journalists.
Yes,
right?
yeah. It's a fantastic movie, and it comes up on the show a lot because I watch it all the time. And I just randomly tagged him on Twitter in a joke that we were making about how often it comes up on the show. And he reached out and he's like, I'd love to be on your podcast if you have time. So like Twitter has been a great platform for these kind of interactions that you'd never think would happen.
No, I know it's just fascinating. It's been really cool. So I'm
It's funny. It's an equalizer in some ways. And also, I mean, frankly, taking advantage of being locked in our houses for a year, it's like everyone has a little extra time on their hands.
Everybody's way more familiar with Zoom. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you have things to do, but thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Yeah, the thing that I have to do, which is huge, is I got my 11-year-old son has his flag football practice tonight, so I got to get over there and help.
Have your children become aware of what Phantasmagoria is now? Are they starting to ask questions?
In the vaguest of senses, they see me, looking at some of the footage and editing little stuff, but no, I will not do to them what so many teenagers in the past had to go
no
through.
Family playthroughs of Phantasmagoria.
There will be no family.
Yeah, there were moments just playing it with these guys. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable.
Totally, yeah. I hear you.
Well,
So
thank
hey,
you
it's a real pleasure to meet you guys, and
Yeah,
I
absolutely. This is
I
this is
enjoyed
great. This is great.
both. I enjoyed that the playthrough, the portions that I watched quite a bit. You guys all seem like you have a lot of fun together, and you have a good rapport. And I hope this podcast just grows and grows for you both.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
very
I hope any listeners who haven't played Phantasmagoria 2, it's on Steam. You can pick it up usually for, I hate to say it in front of you, Paul, but a pretty good price. I don't think you get residuals from it anyway. So,
Yeah, I don't get any cut of it, so that's
that's a pity, actually.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, and we will retweet the heck out of all of your streams. So be sure to send us a link, and we'll get the word out as much as we possibly can.
I just put up a really fun little promo today on Twitter that I think you guys
Oh,
can
fantastic.
Oh, great! Yeah.
on YouTube, so you should check that out. It'll be fun.
All right. Well,
Great.
thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah,
so
thank
great.
you, Curtis.
Yeah, take care, guys. We'll stay in touch.
Curtis.
Okay.
All right, see ya.
It's Paul. It's not Curtis.
Oh, Paul, sorry.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.